ties really well into Ken's next segment of the 3D printing application of the month.
Sure. So, yeah, kind of going off Kevin's article there. I was going to talk about a little bit about production parts. So, 3D printed parts that you actually use as a final product or a part of a final product. And one of the things we talked about in the GM article, the first piece of it is what's called bridged production. Now, we talked a little bit about bridged production in terms of tooling, but also bridged production in terms of components. So, like I brought up, where, let's say, just really hypothetical, the car industry or aerospace, let's do aerospace. Let's say you're making a lot of one type of plane. It may be more efficient to start printing all the air ducting and then switch to injection molding later on, depending on the quantities you need. But in order to hit your early deadlines, it makes more sense to print parts, even if you need a lot of them, and start shipping immediately. The second part of it is low volume production. I think this is the one that everyone knows about in terms of production 3D printed parts. This really specializes for small order, highly customized, and quick turnaround. Those are kind of the three big wins for additive in general. So if you only need a dozen of a part, or if you're only making 5 of a very specialized component, you had mentioned the I think you said like DuPont with the custom equipment. All of that stuff is one-off. There's no one's got those parts in inventory anywhere. So those are good cases where I can print specialized part holdings or fixtures or end-of-arm tools. And then finally, the last of the 3 pieces is end-of-life production. This is probably what you've thought about with like old cars, old planes, anything that no one's producing anymore. So this kind of gets into the reverse engineering industry a little bit, but instead of keeping warehouses and warehouses and warehouses of every part from every car and plane ever made, we just have a printer. We keep all of the digital designs for those parts, and when someone needs a specific component, we go and print that exact part. And that is intended to be used as a fully functional part. So really that cuts down on both physical storage space and obviously mass overhead of inventory.
So like if I had a 1997 Tacoma and I needed you to print a gasket, those are old, those aren't really being made anymore. That would just be something I'd call you up and you'd print one for me?
So yeah, in theory, like you said that was Toyota, right? Let's say Toyota had a manufacturing space. Instead of storing every year, every style of that, they would print basically the near net shaped casting and then just finish machine that one individual component to exactly what you need.
See, I went to like somebody who's restoring like a 1970s MG and they can't find, a cam header or whatever. I don't know car stuff. That might not even be a thing, but stuff like that. But so are there companies that serve that purpose, or is it up to the OEM at that point to have a plan in place to address that end of life usage? Or if you're a consumer who's bought something like that and you're just SOL, or are there third-party resources to do stuff like that?
I think we've been contacted a lot about making old car parts, both for like even engine components, which I usually shy away from, at least from what I can do, but a lot of aesthetic parts that you just can't buy anymore. Those are stuff we do quite frequently. I don't think you necessarily have to go to the OEM. I think that's the way it is right now, just because the OEMs, like I said, they don't want to hold on to warehouses of all this stuff forever. It's definitely been more of like a hobbyist type thing, collector, I guess. But if the OEMs could theoretically keep every single part ever made and within a click of a button, I'm sure they would.
There's money to be made there in the children's toy business. I don't know where it is, but having kids, they break everything all the time. And like that's been the best use case that we've had at home for we should buy a 3D printer, is because when the stuff breaks that my kid bought, or that we got from my kid that I can't find another one of, I need to replace just this little widget. So I think that makes a lot of sense on a bigger scale.
The kids' toys isn't an area that I thought of, Kevin, but that's a really good point.
I mean, not
for, like,
Legos because
home
they're
usage.
indestructible, but The perfect example, Ken, we never actually closed the loop on it, but my kid bashed his baseball tee and cracked the little plastic sleeve that goes around it. I got to either go back to Target and buy another $60 tee, or I could just print an 8-cent plastic ring that goes around it and problem fixed. Or electrical tape and hope he doesn't do it again.
Yeah, the only tricky part with, like, even the example you said, when the part you have has been smashed into pieces, it can be a little hard to redesign.
Harder to, recreate that, especially when it was threaded on the inside. No, I understand.
Yeah, I think this is an application that goes overlooked a lot, or a lot of people look at it who don't understand it, right? I think a lot of people look at, I want a 3D print for production. That means I'm going to use a 3D printer, but I'm going to get the exact same mechanical properties, surface finish, and accuracy off of a traditional process, and I want it to cost the same. And that's just not the case. I think it just comes from a lack of understanding of the technology and really what it's capable of. But in the two specific scenarios that you mentioned, Ken, I really like the legacy parts production aspect of it, because that's something that I can point to. I know Whirlpool does it today, and I know BMW in Europe does it today with big, large-scale metal printers that then they post-machine. So it is being done by the OEMs as like a level of service to their longtime customers of like they're still going to keep supporting
and that might
older
be
equipment.
That kind of stuff might be available for higher end brands now, BMW, if Chris Craft or whatever, like high end boats or whatever it might be. I don't think they make Chris Craft anymore, but the high end stuff will come down eventually too, and that will be more available for companies like Toyota when that's on a different scale and it's more affordable, and those things all change in kind.
Yeah, I would expect that for sure.
I can guarantee that those big brands, even if they're not the luxury brands, are already investigating a lot of this. I mean, I read an article yesterday about Stanley, Black & Decker, that's been investing heavily in everything from printing to automation, factory automation. So all the brands, the bigger brands, are in some way investigating how they can reduce costs this way.
And I believe Black & Decker is moving its manufacturing back to the United States, by the way. I think that just happened? Maybe
I read a headline that said something like that, but I don't remember the company.
I think it was Black & Decker, I think.
Yeah, but the way they got to do that is they got to find a way to make it cost effective here. And one of the ways we can get there is through these kind of additive methods.
You know what I would have loved to have seen? Craftsman. I know that was a brand that was bought by Lowe's, but for the longest time, and my father-in-law has everything Craftsman because it was really, really quality. It had a lifetime warranty. I could see a company, I mean, they don't really offer lifetime warranties much these days, but if you had a company that has something like that, you've got to keep a certain amount of this stuff on hand, right? I mean, you're kind of bound by that.
Lifetime warranty is great until the company goes up, and then,
right.
Yeah, your warranty's not very good.
Speaking of Craftsman and lifetime warranties, you know who else has a lifetime warranty on all their non-electric tools?
Harbor Freight.
Harbor Freight.
Really?
And yes.
Unaware
and
of
as
that.
someone who is very cheap, I appreciate
There's
low quality and lifetime warranty.
Yeah, I did not know that there's a lifetime warranty on non-electric tools.
Husky has one. If you go to I think that's in Lowe's. There's a lot of places that have a lot higher quality.
Milwaukee does, right? They have
Milwaukee.
to.
A lot of tool companies that are obviously not electric and power tools, but more than just Harbor Freight.
So the housing for your impact driver, that cracks and it's cutting your hand. All right, I don't want to go buy another one. I'm going to spend $300 on a new impact driver. All right, no. Hey, Cobalt, I just need the housing for the one side of this. Snap it on there.
Yeah, they do that. If you get your limited warranty, they'll do that for you.
Yeah.
Like the amount of power tools that people have, you can't just replace your DeWalt if it explodes on you.
How many other brands can we fit in this segment?
Yeah. Well,
We're mentioning a lot of brands for not being sponsored.
I know, right?
We gotta
well,
cut
actually,
this
that just
out.
happened. my brother-in-law, he dropped his DeWalt drill. I think it was his impact driver, and it actually it exploded in two directions. It was on its last leg of life. So that was fresh in my mind. But no, they do repair stuff.
Yeah.
It's basically the same price as buying a new one, but hey, they'll do it for you.